Hi, welcome to Women of Worth Wednesday. I am coming to you in my pajamas and robe. When we started this series a few weeks ago, I promised authenticity, and I've tried to show up every week with that intention in mind. That is, for me, the best way to learn and to connect. And so, based on especially what we're talking about and how my morning's gone, this is the most authentic way I can show up for you today. So I'd love to have your comments from where you're watching this video from, and also as I share some thoughts today about being authentic and creating balance and saying no during the holidays, that you'll share with me some of your vulnerabilities and your choices this holiday that have created that for you and for your family. So first off, thank you again, High Five Live, for allowing me to host this series. We had a guest last week, Julie, and I hope if you haven't had a chance to watch her video on depression, it was powerful to have a conversation with her. She is super authentic and real. And she brought a great perspective on the holidays, especially for those that deal with mental illness. And all of us out there have someone that we know, or we deal with it ourselves, or both. So I hope that you'll go back and a conversation that I had with her on our Wow Wednesday mentioned a post I had done earlier during Thanksgiving, and I wanted to kind of follow up with that today. It's the theme of what this conversation's about today. And as you can see, this video is titled, "It's Okay to Say No." So one of the principles I like to teach is that whatever we say no to, we also are saying yes to something else. For example, if I say yes to robbing a bank, or yes to saying robbing a bank, I may be saying no to my freedom if I'm caught. And that's kind of a crazy example, but we do it all day long. And I think especially as women, and this Women of Worth Wednesday is really our goal with High Five Live, is to reach women, because they really guide conversations in families and in the community and in the world. But we've always said we welcome men here too, and we love that you join us and share. But I think as women especially, we struggle with saying no. We feel some guilt in that. And we wonder if we're being Christ-like or God-like if we say no to things that we're not comfortable with, or that we are not enjoying, or that we don't feel like we can do. And I like to share that God says no to us all the time, and he changes what he says yes and no to. I mean, there was a time where he said no to eating pork, but yes to drinking wine. And for an LDS community, he says bacon's fine, right? But that he'd rather us not drink wine through the word of wisdom. And so that's just an example of where God changes sometimes what he says no and yes to. And so I think the other concept of saying no means that we don't always have to say no to something. That sometimes when we say no one day, it's a yes a couple months later. Today, I decided that I was going to say no to getting a shower in before this video, because I wanted to say yes to something else. And that brings me to the next concept that I wanted to share with you. And that is a value-driven holiday. Often in the holidays, we want to say yes to everything. We just want to have magic experiences. We want our kids to be overwhelmed with the presents under the tree. But when we say yes to every purchase, then we're saying no to maybe another value that we have, which is managing our money. And I had an opportunity a few weeks ago to attend a workshop right before Thanksgiving. My dear friend Christy is a therapist, and she's super wise, and she actually just checked in with me before this video so that I could be really grounded and clear on some things that are triggering me. But she talked us through a value-driven holiday. And if you think of the word holiday, it's a holy day. That's what holiday is. And yet so often, New Year's comes and we look back on from Thanksgiving on that it maybe wasn't as holy as we wanted it to be. And so in this workshop, we kind of went through a list of values, and there's a ton of lists on Pinterest or on the web. Brene Brown talks a lot about this, and so if you want to pull up a list of values, you can kind of see what some of the values are. And for some, it may be production, like you want to create, and so that's really important for you during the holidays. And so you start to always add things that are kind of creation mode. For me, after this workshop, I was able to kind of narrow down my values. And my values for this holiday, I decided were two things. And Julie talked about this with me last week. And if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, I've shared this before with a choice I made at Thanksgiving. My two values are leisure and connection. And so I chose paper plates during Thanksgiving so that it would be connection, because I love pretty things, but it was more leisure oriented because we could just throw them away. So I kind of set that as an intention, and Christy kind of guided our group through understanding that a value is a director. It's not a destination. And so it becomes a guiding value. So when you have a last minute invitation to something, or you see your to-do list is getting out of control. For me, I've tried to return back to my values. Now, I have to tell you, I've been kind of triggered the last day or so because we're 5 days from Christmas and there's not been as much connection in some of the ways I thought there would be. And also some leisure didn't happen the way I thought it should be. And so today, the leisure and connection is me in pajamas, not showered, hair not done. I did brush my teeth for you, but I chose to have leisure in some of the things I needed to get done before this video. And then I chose connection. I literally reached out through Marco Polo, which is an app that I've just recently discovered. And I have friends that live in various areas. And we just connected all morning long on some of the feelings. I was feeling really emotional today, very weepy, very nostalgic this time of year, and anticipating a call with my missionary on Monday. And I don't know. I don't know what it was. We've had a couple of late nights, and so I just could tell that I was really feeling vulnerable. And so in honoring those values of connection and leisure, I reached out to friends instead of trying to get some other things done, like a shower, getting my hair done, makeup on. So I wanted to share this with you in connection also with another example in the scriptures. I like to do that. I like to show where the scripture stories are very relevant for today, because I think sometimes we miss that in our faith conversations, especially as women, when a lot of the stories feel male-centered or war-centered. I love kind of challenging myself when I read my scriptures to see the modern day and personal applications. So I was trying to think of an example of a story that I feel elevates the conversation in a way that only scriptures can, because they're truth, about saying yes and no. And the thought that came to me is the story of manna. And God is like leading the children of Israel, and they're 40 years in the wilderness. And he says to them, I'm going to provide for you the manna for each day. But it's only going to be good for that day. You can't like stockpile it so that you don't have to gather it the next day. But on Saturday, or on the day before the Sabbath, which would be maybe Friday for the children of Israel, you can gather double so that on the Sabbath you don't have to gather. So how does that apply to saying yes and no? When we say yes to time with our spouse, we may be saying no to getting a load of laundry done. If we say no to one more work assignment that may give us a little more attention at work, but we say no to it because we're running on empty and our candle is being burned at both ends, we're then saying yes to our health. And I realized that God is so good about boundaries, right? And saying yes and no is a boundary. And here in this story, he's saying, I'm going to provide for you what you need today, but keep it in the day. Don't get too forward in your thinking. And that's what sometimes gets me in trouble, is I start doing this what if from 3 days from now. That if yesterday didn't work well in my value-driven goals of leisure and connection, what can I do to restart today? And just bring it back to today. And so my invitation to you is, if you set some intentions for this holiday and they've kind of derailed, and you're 5 days before Christmas, or maybe you're considering already for the new year where you need to make some adjustments and changes, I'm going to give you permission to say no. Say no to things that are going to allow you to say yes to something else. And instead of panicking that you're not being kind or not being there for your family, realize that when you're listening to the Spirit and you're feeling in your heart that you need to say no to something because it's pushing you too far some way, or it's not right. It doesn't mean it's not right for someone else, but it's just not right. that's keeping you in a value-based decision-making pattern, using your agency to be directed by God. With agency, we are able to also be directed to these bigger goals. And the children of Israel were left in the wilderness for a long time, but they were given what they needed each day. And so instead of fearing that if you don't say yes to something now, you're never going to have a chance in the future, know that you can say no and yes today. And that doesn't mean that you won't have opportunities in the future. And then also trust that bringing it back to the present is, to me, one of the best ways that we can honor the holidays and bring the Spirit of Christ into the holidays. And being really present, we're not so in our forward thinking about what needs to get done. We stay more present. And so I think the story of manna is a reminder of keeping it in the day. Just do today the best that you can. And if you've gotten off track and you're finding that you're running on empty and you're snapping at your kids and you're resentful and you're nervous and you're thinking it's not going to be as magical on Christmas morning as you want it to be, or you're feeling lonely, you're feeling like this isn't the connection that you expect during the holidays, what is it that you could say no to today? What could be taken off your to-do list so that you could say yes to some connection? And maybe those two values, the ones I've shared that are mine, aren't yours. You know, come up with 2 values, not 10, 2 values. Maybe for you, there's a value in creation. And so for you to create, baking a new pie for your holiday dinner is a creation, and it's honoring your value. So whatever that is, get clear about maybe 2 values or 1 value that will allow you to move forward, and then be okay with saying no to everything else. And remember that when you say no to something that's not in line with your values, you are saying yes to something that is in line with your values. And that when we say yes to something, we are also saying no to other things, and that's okay as well. When I say yes to going to church on Sunday, that allows me to honor the value I have of worship. And then I say no to other things on Sunday because that's where I want to be. So I hope that this message is clear. I hope that you see that I'm committed to creating a place, a community here where we meet every week. 7 days from now, it will be after Christmas, and it will be before the new year. And I hope you join me. We're going to have a special guest next week. I'm excited about that. She's fabulous, and you'll love her story. But I hope that, showing up at 11 o'clock Utah time in my robe, in my pajamas today, you see that I'm committed. I'm committed to being authentic here. And so please share this video with someone that may need to hear this message of that it's okay to say no, and that when you say no, you're saying yes to other things, and when you say yes to some things, you're saying no to others, and reminding them and yourself that we have manna every day. We have what we need to do today. And that sometimes I get in trouble when I panic and want to plan for 5 days from now. I want to have everything in order perfectly. And I need to just trust that God is guiding me today. He is allowing me to know what He knows for me will bring me the greatest amount of joy. I just need to listen to Him. So when something doesn't feel good and I'm scared to say no, because God may be giving me that spirit of resistance so that I honor the values that I've set, the intentions that I've set for my life. So Merry Christmas to all of you. I welcome this time each week. It says something to me after a few weeks that I thought, you know what, I can show up with this group today in my robe, and they'll welcome me with their open hearts. So please share how you're honoring your values at this holiday time, and maybe what you're saying no to, so that you can say yes to something else, and know that God does it. And so we're trying to be like Him in all that we do. And Merry Christmas, and thank you for welcoming me into your homes and your offices and into your lives, and for sharing these videos. I hope this community just keeps growing, and Merry Christmas to all of you.